It's been a while since I've done a tier list video. In the past, I've done tier list videos on a variety of things. I've done tier lists of my favorite text editors, favorite terminal emulators, favorite tiling window managers. I've done several of those kinds of videos, but it's been a while. And today I wanted to do a tier list of my favorite web browsers, and I'm sure this will not be controversial at all. So the very first browser I think we should talk about is Chromium because it's one of the more popular free and open source software browsers, and a lot of Linux distributions ship Chromium. It's not quite as a standard as Firefox. Most Linux distributions ship Firefox as the default browser, but a number of them do ship Chromium. Chromium is essentially our open source version of Google Chrome. And what are my thoughts? My thoughts is Chromium is very much like Chrome as far as the engine. Of course, it renders everything. The speed is great. It's a really fine browser. I will say it's not going to make it into the great tier because it's really just Google Chrome with it's open source, right? So that's great, but it's as far as like neat features, any kind of real modern innovations as far as the interface and extra tools and services and things like that, not really much else going on with it, but it's definitely what I would consider a good browser. Now let's go to the other browser I mentioned as far as an open source browser that does ship on most Linux distributions out of the box. Mozilla Firefox. Now Mozilla Firefox, of course, they have their own web engine. It's not Chromium based. And I will say, as far as performance in Firefox over the years, it lags behind Chrome as far as rendering web pages, and some websites don't work quite well in Firefox the way they do on a Chrome or Chromium-based browser. It's not necessarily Firefox's fault that that's the case. It's just the nature of the web and the fact that Chrome dominates market share. But part of the reason Chrome dominates market share is that Firefox now only has a 2% market share of the web browser market share worldwide, right? And Firefox used to be the most popular browser in the world at one point. Many people don't realize that Firefox at one point had a greater than 50% market share of the web browser market share. This was right before Chrome came out, before Google created Chrome, and Firefox was beating the crap out of Microsoft Internet Explorer at the time. And, it's gone way, way downhill. The people that are running Firefox these days have driven it into the ground. And I think it's a good web browser, but just because of the people that run it, I can't give it more than a okay. Like, it's a okay browser. It's usable. Nothing wrong with it. But I don't know what the future holds in store for Firefox. I don't think it's going to be around much longer. It's really sad what this project has become. For a Firefox-based browser that is much better, I quite like LibreWolf. LibreWolf is interesting because it's Firefox itself. It focuses on privacy and security out of the box. It has a lot of privacy and security settings that are defaults that should be defaults in Firefox, but for whatever reason Firefox is not focused on that sort of stuff anymore. LibreWolf is kind of what Firefox should be, and I'm going to put it in the great category. Matter of fact, we may have several web browsers that end up in the great category, but I think LibreWolf definitely deserves to be there. Now let's talk about a couple of other web browsers that you will, on occasion, it's kind of rare, but on occasion you will see these web browsers as the default web browser on some Linux distributions. And I'm talking about Epiphany and Falcon. Epiphany is a GNOME web browser, like it's part of the GNOME project and suite of applications, and Falcon is a KDE web browser. This is kind of from back in the day, the old days where our big desktop environments felt like they had to also create their own web browser. Like they want to create everything, right? They create their own text editor and, Office suite, really big projects that they didn't need to focus so much time on. They really needed to just focus on the desktop environment, right? Your panels and, start menus and things like that, the user interface, but they were creating things like web browsers, and that never made any sense because web browsers are big projects, and naturally these things are not great, right? Epiphany is, I believe the web engine on Epiphany is that I believe it's WebKit, or it could be Web Engine. No, it's a port of Apple's WebKit. So, it's not the greatest browser, right? WebKit browsers typically aren't. The user interface, nothing unique or special about it. It's just meh, right? It really, yeah, there's nothing to say about it. Falcon is KDE's web browser. It's WebKit as well, or actually, I think it's the old engine that Cupzilla used to use. What was that? Qt Web Engine. Not a great web engine, just not good browsers, right? These are, if you have a distribution, if you install a Linux distribution that has either Epiphany or Falcon as the default web browser, you're not going to stay on it. You're going to install probably like some of the browsers above here or some of the browsers down here in this list. This is not something that you're likely to live in long term. Next up, let's talk about ungoogled Chromium, because this is an interesting browser. It is Chromium. Chromium is Chrome that's open source, but ungoogled Chromium takes Chromium. It's all open source, but they also strip out like some telemetry and things, some of the Google bits, right? They try to remove any kind of possible way that Google could be tracking you and data mining you in any way. So because of that, Chromium is already a good browser. Because naturally I have to put this above Chromium. I guess it has to be great. I'd really want a category in between here, between great and good, but I've got to put it above Chromium, just naturally. So let's go ahead and put it in the great category. Next up, one of my favorite browsers, Qt Browser. Now, Qt Browser is interesting because it is a Chromium-based browser as far as it uses the Chromium web engine. And it is keyboard driven. It uses Vim-like key bindings. It's quite minimal out of the box. It's basically a frame, a window frame, no title bars, and extra little graphical bits. And for somebody that likes to have minimal applications that don't have a lot going on, I quite like Qt Browser. The keyboard navigation with it is quite well done. Once you get used to it, it's very easy to move around in Qt Browser and be quite fast and efficient in it. The one downside with Qt Browser is there's no extensions with it as far as Chrome extensions and ad blocking out of the box. There is some ad blocking ability with Qt Browser, but it's not great. So because of that, I would love to say it's a great browser, but I've got to knock it down to just good, right? And this is kind of niche. Like if you're not somebody that really wants a keyboard driven browser, you're probably not going to like Qt Browser at all. But if you want a keyboard driven browser, Qt Browser, I think is the best out there. Another keyboard driven browser that I tried a while back, Nixt. Now it's been a long time since I've used Nixt, and Nixt was pretty cool, right? It's very similar to Qt Browser, except it's got the ability to have like Emacs-like key bindings if you prefer Emacs-style key bindings rather than Vim-style key bindings, although I think you can swap between the two. It's got some really neat features. Like it's a really unique kind of browser. It does not use the Chromium engine, though. It actually, I believe it is a WebKit browser as well. So that's kind of a knock on it as far as, rendering websites properly sometimes. Oh, Nixt, it's a really neat browser. I should actually revisit it sometime, see what the latest development of it is like, but I'm going to put it down here in the OK tier. Next up, let's talk about the Brave browser. Obviously, I use the Brave browser. It's the browser I'm always in pretty much in my videos. It's what I'm in here today doing this tier list. Brave was a company that was started by a former CEO and founder of Firefox and Mozilla. He's also the creator of, I believe, the JavaScript language. It's somebody that's, it's very well versed in what a web browser should be. He's been in the game for a long time, and Brave is a fantastic browser. Like it's, it has kind of become what, Firefox, as Firefox died, and this person that used to work at Firefox went on to create their own browser using the Chromium engine rather than Firefox's engine. It's just such a good browser. It's kind of minimal out of the box. Not a lot going on with the user interface, which kind of is what I like. Plus, Brave has a lot of extra tools and services if you want to use them, like the Brave web search. Brave search engine is actually fantastic if you want like a privacy focused search engine, something to search other than Google. Brave search is probably the best search engine that's not Google, right? It's like Brave is the Brave search is really good. I also like their AI assistant, which is Leo. I can hit a key binding. I'll get a split with my little sidebar with the Leo chat assistant, and I can ask it a question, and it can use any large language model that I want to install. So, it's just really well done as far as the Brave browser. A lot of people in the early days when it first came out, had some complaints with Brave, but the software has come a long way in the last, say, 4 or 5 years, since it kind of first blew up on the scene. One of the complaints people still have to this day with Brave is that it's tied to cryptocurrency in some way. Some people have this weird, like almost conspiratorial kind of thing with anything related to cryptocurrency. Yes, Brave had its own cryptocurrency, its own BAT token or whatever, and its monetization was all done with cryptocurrency, but it's in no way tied to cryptocurrency anymore. Even back in the day, you could turn all that stuff off, which is what I did. I'm not against cryptocurrency. I'm fine with it. But these days, when you install Brave, you don't even see any crypto stuff. That's all in the past. So the people that still complain about that, I would say, get over yourselves. Next up, Zen Browser. So this is one I've played around just a little bit with. It's kind of a newer browser. So, it's not... I wouldn't say the most stable thing in the world. It's rather new, but it is a fantastic browser. It's based on Firefox, but it does some really neat things with the user interface out of the box. It uses vertical tabs. So you got to be somebody that likes vertical tabs if you want to use this thing. It's essentially kind of like a spiritual successor to the old Arc browser if you used Arc. So Arc is now a dead project. So, Zen Browser, I'm going to say, even though it's still kind of early days, I'm going to say it's a good browser. And of the browsers that are left down here in the list, the only one of this group that I have actually lived in for a little while, I did try to make Surf work. Surf is Suckless's browser. It is a WebKit browser. It is extremely minimal, like all Suckless software. This is a browser that doesn't even come with the ability to have tabs. You get a single browser window. If you want tabs, you have to come up with some creative ways to get tabs in this web browser. You have to use another Suckless tool called Tabbed, which is a tabbing program. It's a mess. Really, everything about this browser kind of sucks. It's a WebKit browser. It's slow. It's buggy. It's extremely minimal to the point where it's practically unusable. It's impossible to use a web browser that doesn't have tabbing ability. Also, creating like bookmarks and your history and everything. It's navigated through basically like a D menu style system, and it's not horrible, but it's clunky. It really is. There's no way I could put this any higher than meh. But honestly, Epiphany and Falcon, now that I think about it, Epiphany and Falcon are actually real browsers. They actually have the ability to tab. You know what? It pains me because I do like a lot of the Suckless software, but Surf is easily the worst thing they put out, and it's going in the yuck category. Next up is a browser I actually haven't used in years, Madori. It used to ship out of the box, I believe, on a lot of XFCE based distros. I don't know if XFCE was really behind the development of the browser, or it made sense because Madori's claim to fame is it's supposed to be fast and lightweight. It's a WebKit browser. I do like its user interface, everything about it. I do like it a little more than Epiphany and Falcon, but just a little more. I don't think I can put it in the okay category. I think Madori does have to be in the meh category. But again, I haven't used Madori in a number of years. It's another one I probably should install and revisit at some point because I'm sure that there have been some improvements with it since the last time I tried it out. Next up, GNU IceCat. Now this is almost, it's a very niche browser. It's Firefox that has all the proprietary bits kind of stripped out. I mean, Firefox is an open source browser, but GNU IceCat's essentially a Firefox rebrand with like any kind of trademarked artwork from Firefox, ripped out. Also, there are some like non-free add-ons that are part of Firefox. Obviously, the Free Software Foundation, the free software movement has problems with, a lot of like non-free JavaScript and things that load on websites. GNU IceCat, unless you're a absolute free software zealot and don't want any kind of proprietary software on your system or on your web pages at all, GNU IceCat is not something you want to run. And it is, you know what, I would say it would be meh just for that. But another thing, now that I think about it, IceCat, the development of it is rather slow. So even for security reasons, because it doesn't keep up with like the latest Firefox changes all that quickly, I'm going to put it down in the yuck category. I would not recommend running that browser. And then finally, let's talk about the last of the open source browsers on this list. I had to go ahead and throw at least one terminal-based browser in the list, and there's a million terminal-based browsers. I figured I would go with the oldest browser, Lynx, L-Y-N-X. Lynx is actually not only the oldest terminal-based web browser, it's actually the oldest actively developed web browser. Period. It is the oldest web browser we have that's still actively developed. It still ships sometimes out of the box on Linux systems, especially on minimal like server distros. Sometimes you're at a TTY on a server distro, right? And you need to access the web and, visit a website. Lynx will often be the browser on those systems. And for what it is, it's actually not bad. You would think being a terminal-based browser, and it doesn't have a ton of features, obviously not a graphical application at all, you'd think I might put it in meh or even yuck. But for what it is, when you need to use it, I actually think it's pretty good. I'm going to give it at least an okay. And I could actually put it in the good. I think good is probably a little bit too much. I think it's just okay. And then we have these four browsers here: Chrome, Edge, Vivaldi, Safari. These are all proprietary. I've used them all very sparingly. Chrome I've used the most because I've had jobs that had to have Windows computers that ran Chrome. Chrome is proprietary garbage. It's got to go in yuck. I know it's the most popular browser on the planet as far as market share. Like 85% of people around the world, they view the web on Google Chrome. It doesn't make it a good browser, right? It makes it popular, but it doesn't make it good. And I'm not a fan of, even if it was open source, it's not. It doesn't compete with a lot of the stuff up here. Microsoft Edge, I barely use, but it's just a Chromium fork that doesn't really do anything all that interesting. Vivaldi it makes the yuck list for being proprietary. It also makes the yuck list because when they first came out, Vivaldi was shady as hell because they almost tried to pretend like they were open source, because like you go to their website, they were saying they were based on open source technology. Not necessarily a lie. They use the Chromium web engine, which is open source. So they do base their software on some open source technology, but Vivaldi itself is proprietary software. It's licensed under a proprietary license, right? Closed source proprietary software. And I thought that's shady as hell. I don't mind software that's proprietary. Like I'm not going to make any judgments as far as moral turpitude. I'm not going to say you're an evil company or evil person for making proprietary software. That's your choice. You do what you do. But it is shady as hell and a total douchebag move to make proprietary software and then try to, be really slick in the way you market things, to try to pretend to be open source as if the people in the open source community can't tell, right? Like, who are you kidding, right? So if you wanted to piss off the open source community, the best thing to do is to pretend to be open source when you're not. If you had just been upfront and say, hey, we're proprietary software, we use the open source Chromium engine, that's fine. But when you leave off the we're proprietary software part and just say, hey, we're based on some open source technology, and you dig a little deeper and it's not licensed under a free license, yeah, Vivaldi, you're in the yuck tier. Now let's talk about Apple Safari. Oh my goodness. Is there a tier below yuck? I need to create a new tier, I think, because this one, obviously yuck is the lowest tier, but if there was a tier below yuck, I'd probably put Safari in there. So there you have it. My tier list as far as web browsers. I know people are going to disagree every time I do one of these tier lists. Obviously, the comment section of the video is kind of heated discussions. Oh man, I can't believe you put that browser that high. That browser's garbage. Or the browser you put in yuck is my favorite browser. I'd never use anything but that browser. Well, you know what? Post it in the comment section down below. Anything you think I got wrong, let me know about it in the comments down below. Now, before I go, I need to thank a few special people. I need to thank the producers of this episode: Matt, Steve, 40mm, Cap Caveman, Darloff, Lee, Jersey Killer, Mark, Methos, Ariane, Paul, Peace, Archer, Madori, Realities for Less, Red Prophet, Roland, War, Gentoo, and Ubuntu, and Willie. These guys, they're my highest tiered patrons over on Patreon. Without these guys, this tier list of my favorite web browsers would not have been possible. The show is also brought to you by each and every one of these fine ladies and gentlemen. All these names you're seeing on the screen right now, these are all my supporters over on Patreon. Without these guys, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I don't have any corporate sponsors, so if you like my work, want to see more videos about Linux and free and open source software, subscribe to DistroTube over on Patreon. Peace, guys.